What up? What up? What up, y'all? This Tone Talks in the building. I'm gonna let everybody fall in because I want to have a discussion today. I haven't been with you guys for a few weeks due to the ADOS conference. Please fall in. Let's have this discussion. Um, Little house cleaning. Dash Radio is actually doing a whole new studio. I'll be back up with my show hopefully in the next, few weeks here, 2 weeks or so. But until then, I wanted to do a show to come get to you guys, have a discussion. Also, from a house cleaning standpoint, I won't be at the Revolt Summit this Friday. I put a post up. I'll leave it at that. Again, we had a great meeting. Myself, ADOS Los Angeles, ADOS in large. We had a great meeting with the head of the Black Caucus. We submitted some revisions to HR 40, that being Karen Bass. I appreciate her taking it from an hour to 2 hours. I believe we impacted her view on things. I got a chance to really lay out the data, and I really believe she should take that, as I said to her, and give it to all the Black Caucus members, the reality of the black wealth condition in America. We're here on Tone Talks doing a pop up show. This is about Meghan Markle and LeBron James and the global reality of black America. I expect to have about 2,000 people listening, maybe 1,500 to 2,000 people listening live. As this is a pop up show, please support. You can support this channel by going to the super chat here on YouTube. Please join the discussion, or also you can use my Cash App. That's Tone Talks, or Venmo or PayPal. ToneTalks.org to read the past articles or get involved with the discussion. I'm looking forward to having it. Couple other things. We have a major piece coming out in the New York Times on Wednesday on ADOS and the ADOS conference. New York Times was at the conference for over 9 hours, and they also had photos. I don't know what's going to come out. Hopefully, it's a positive article. We shall see. On Friday, we have an ABC News piece coming out. ABC News interviewed myself and Yvette Carnell for over an hour this weekend. So we're moving right along here and having a discussion that nobody has had for generations about black folks, about American descendants of slavery, about the debt that's owed. Because what has happened is that we've been forgotten, but we've been left with the cost. Let me see what's going on in the chat. What's up, Tone and ADOS family? That's from B. ADOS Boston in the house. Thank you, MC Hammer Daddy. What a name. And Miss Virgo, ADOS Maryland. Rock Smith, ADOS Florida. Afcool, ADOS Chicago. We got people all around the country listening to this. This is a live show. You can join the chat. If I look over and I see what you're saying, I might join in on it. Myself, I put up a post about Meghan Markle this morning on Twitter. Please go check that out to give you some context of where I'm going to go with Meghan Markle. But let's just start off with LeBron James. So I didn't get a chance to get to LeBron. Bron been out here. You know, what we have to understand is that black America, due to being enslaved, due to having Jim Crow, due to the way that we pushed back, fought back, and got rights, we don't just represent a sort of consciousness for the nation. We oftentimes represent it for blackness around the world because of how we pushed back, how we stayed here, how we fought, and how we changed things. And I think in a lot of ways, you see athletes, you see entertainers trying to commercialize that without standing up for the same politics. Now, LeBron James has a history, if we remember, with Tamir Rice. So Tamir Rice was shot down. He said nothing and essentially tried to take the silent stance. It is at that point that we saw a transition in how LeBron James was going to try to present himself. I believe he still did not deal with race. He more so dealt with like class, but he masked it in race to make it seem like he really was just about black folk. Now he came out with the school commendable on a class level. We don't. It isn't teaching anything specific about black folks and race and the way that we want black folks taught. In addition, it's run by white people. The board is white. Well, he also more recently did something commendable, and I commend him on what he got done. Where Gavin Newsom, and I don't know, let me not say he got done. He provided a platform, something for work that was already being done. Now he did play a role by being a vocal advocate in terms of players getting paid. Again, that's not race specific. It does impact black folks though, because we play these sports, basketball and football, at such a high rate. But Gavin Newsom came into the barbershop and signed the bill in the barbershop that players would get paid in California starting in I believe 2021 or something like. Actually, it might be 2023. Don't quote me. But here we are having a larger global discussion, and LeBron James shows that he don't really get his role in this whole thing, and how he's part of the oppressive industry, and his impact and making these cheap Nikes and everything else. And I want everybody to kind of understand, because I don't think anybody's really explained what's going on in Hong Kong. And I want to read it to you so that we can have an understanding. But there's a larger narrative, and I've been myself to both Beijing and Hong Kong. There's a larger narrative of many of the goods, from the iPhones to the Nikes. They're made in these places by children, by people that make nothing, people who live in little places with no windows, and they make these goods for us. Well, essentially now you see this like pushback from the people against an oppressive Chinese government, and it's a question of, if you are black, where should you stand? Versus also at the same time being a super capitalist like LeBron James, where should you stand? Because your interests lie with the government. You know, if you're black, based on our civil rights, the way we take it, you should stand with people. But that goes against your dollars. You know, the NBA has these games being played. That's part of the reason he had to speak. They're playing in China. So now you got to speak on this, and you don't really have a good position, because you are a part of an oppressive system selling cheap shoes made by people who are working sweatshop hours. Now, I want to kind of get into it, because this is an actual discussion. MD Van said LeBron is just an athlete who has no idea what he's talking about, and I have to agree. I think that in some ways we as black folks didn't do the same demand that we're seeing from the Hong Kong protesters, because I believe this should have happened in America. I believe that, like, in a large part, I don't know if we should support a lot of these athletes. Let me say this before I get into LeBron. I've heard people say stuff that I think is ignorant, like you should just do like Steph Curry and not say nothing, as if nothing is better than what LeBron said. The problem right now is that these people are selling blackness through the lens of white capital. Let me say that again. They're basically packaging blackness, Negro-ness, ADOS-ness into a sales product, a shoe or a headband or whatever, and selling it and projecting it through the white distribution centers. And I think that for a lot of us, we don't understand. It's not the shoe they selling our culture, our history, our lineage. They're packaging that. So you got Steph Curry, who grew up very privileged, but then he hooks himself, and people say, "Well, he's not really." Well, go watch that commercial where he told all these kids in the urban ghettos. I'm talking about the Under Armour commercial, and if I need to, I'll put a screenshot up, and you see him actually trying to sell this whole come up from nothing kind of imagery. That's what they selling to the world at large, particularly to Americans. So I want to get into that, because I feel like the answer isn't to say nothing at all. The answer is to get the message right. And the message might require you to go against Nike or the Chinese government and deal with the fact that you made enough money to this point. You know, it comes back to what Ali said. Ali said once, they asked him about a yacht, and he said, "What is the point of being on that yacht if I can't be with my people? If I can't be with the people at the barbershop? What is the point of being the only person on the yacht?" What we've come to do is celebrate the onlyness of it all, the singularity of it all, the aberrationalness of it all. We've come to celebrate people that shouldn't be celebrated for things they're doing that they ain't got nothing to do with us. Where was LeBron James' amicus brief in support of Byron Allen and the Civil Rights Act of 1866? You do business. Come on, man. We talking now. So now let's look at this protest. Let's get into it. Please use the super chat, support this discussion, because it's a necessary one. I haven't heard anyone really flesh this out, and I think black people have been floundering, trying to make their own arguments, be like Steph Curry and don't say nothing. LeBron is stupid, and all of that is just not enough. Let's get into the detail, into the weeds. So the 2019 Hong Kong protest, also known as the Anti-Extradition Law Amendment Bill or Anti-ELAB movement, are an ongoing series of demonstrations in Hong Kong, which began with the aim to oppose the introduction of the Fugitive Offenders Amendment Bill proposed by the Hong Kong government. If enacted, the bill would let local authorities detain and extradite criminal fugitives who are wanted in territories with which Hong Kong does not currently have extradition agreements, including Taiwan and mainland China. People were concerned that the bill would subject Hong Kong residents and visitors to the mainland China's jurisdiction, undermining the region's autonomy and its civil liberties. As the protests progressed, the protesters laid out 5 key demands, which include investigation into alleged police misconduct and resumption of democratic reforms, and were promised in the basic law but stagnated after the 2014 umbrella revolution. The Chinese central government has described the protests as the worst crisis in Hong Kong since the handover in '97. So you see this whole thing of, it sounds similar to like what we were talking about with BLM, what we were talking about with police protests. I don't know how you're now on the wrong side of that, LeBron James. I don't know how you don't see that if you're going to say something, and you should say something, it should be in light of connecting the police protests here in America for black folks with the police protests of the Chinese and dealing with where the cards fall. If you're going to beat Ali, you got to beat Ali. But to beat Ali, you got to know more. I don't know if the boy know more. You know, everybody says, Tone, why you talk about a college education? Because I don't know if this man knows enough. I'm not saying guaranteed if you go to Howard or you go to UCLA that you're automatically going to know more. But I think the chances of you taking civics, the chances of you reading higher level books, the chances of you understanding what you're saying when you say, I'm going to follow the path of Ali, are much higher. You know, you go all the way back to why Ali would not go fight. Why Ali would not go fight in, I believe, Vietnam. And I'm not going to fight no yellow man. So this is the thing. Like, now we're in a more complex state where it's not just war, it's economics. And it's the reality of economics. It's the reality of a global context of oppression. And understanding that if you're going to be a capitalist, just be a capitalist and then don't say nothing about no civil rights and all of that stuff to try to sell more shoes and more shirts. That's where we at. So let's look at some of the timeline of what happened with Bron. And I want to go to the chat. Let me go to the chat. Tanisha Ruffin, speak, teach. Black to death. Black celebrity is dead. Okay. Black Ocean. Everybody want to ride off the black backs of ADOS. We ain't got nothing to do with that. These are some great comments, y'all. These are some great comments. Yeah, man. I feel like when we look at this thing, we go all the way back, and Daryl Morey, who's an executive for Houston, he basically tweeted an image in support of the pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong. Understand this. A white executive understood what side of the fence he needed to stand on, which was with the protesters. But LeBron James, a black guy that says that he's about civil rights, didn't know. Understand again, LeBron James didn't come out in support of the Civil Rights Act of 1866, hasn't signed the amicus brief, hasn't done an open letter. He is dead silent on the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and Comcast. This is all connected. So it's easy to do like a school that's for poor kids, and then basically not really say what the school is about, and not talk about race, and not talk about white oppression, and then take all the credit like you really standing up for something. But it's much more complex when you start getting into the nuance and the weeds where people hold you to it and say, what are you about? Are you about selling shoes, or are you about black folk? You about selling shoes, or you about real people that are against government oppression? Which one are you about? So Daryl Morey put out the tweet, and LeBron James then at first, let me read the first section of it, and then I'm going to come to his actual quote that he came out later. ESPN added that in the players-only meeting, James saw canceling the press conferences as a way of protecting the players from becoming the individual focus of attention. So they're in China, and James initially is saying, let's cancel all of the protests. So then what happens is we move to a point where him and Silver decide that the players are going to cancel, and then LeBron James says, I think when we all sit back and learn from the situation that happened, understand that what you could tweet or could say, we all talk about this freedom of speech. Yes, we all do have freedom of speech, but at times there are ramifications for the negative that can happen when you're not thinking about others and you're only thinking about yourself. I don't want to get into a word or sentence feud with Daryl Morey, but I believe he wasn't educated on the situation at hand, and he spoke, and so many people could have been harmed, not only financially, but physically, emotionally, spiritually. So just be careful what we tweet and what we say and what we do, even though, yes, we do have freedom of speech, but there can be a lot of negatives that come with that too. That's a lot of like fluff to say that you standing with the Chinese government to me. I believe you don't have the right to not stand with the realities of oppression. If you're going to be black in this, you kind of got to come out and say what it is. But I don't sell Nike shoes. And so this is the problem with the black athlete of the moment, is that they're a commercial product. You know, Ali was a boxer, and I don't think we understand. Everybody says Ali and LeBron. LeBron is part of a whole infrastructure of a team that's inside of a greater league. That no, Ali was a singular boxer that was only beholden to the commissions to box. He wasn't trying to sell burgers and Sprite and Nikes. He was a boxer. Now later on, after Ali retired in the '80s, you saw a new version where they commercialized his image. But when he was boxing, he was beholden only to the sport and his people, and that's the difference. So if LeBron can't be beholden to us, if LeBron can't stand up for civil rights, I don't know why he's talking at all about any of this stuff. And that's just my position on it. I don't think that LeBron is just not knowing what he's talking about. I think that he's a commercial product trying to commercialize civil rights. I believe that ADOS, Yvette Carnell, Breaking Brown, Tone Talks, we made it so that you got to talk about this stuff. Shout out to Tariq Nasheed. Shout out to, I believe, Black Authority, all these other webs. We made it so y'all got to talk politics, and now everybody's struggling. Because your business, your model, your roots are not politics. That's what we seeing right now. So let's move over to Meghan Markle, because I'm not going to keep y'all too long. We got 1,100 in the box. Shout out to y'all. Please use the super chat. Please support on the Cash App, Tone Talks. Please support and share this video. Press like. Thank you so much for supporting on this pop-up show. So you had Meghan Markle come out recently in an article, I'm struggling to thrive and feel happy. When she actually married this family, I told y'all back in May of 18, whatever it was, that I have no idea why some ADOS person would marry into the family of the monarchy in Britain. They established the slave trade. They were the main beneficiaries of the cotton, even after they abolished their slave trade from America. This is not just about interracial marriage. See, I think we get lost. I don't have an issue with individually a black person and a white person married. Everybody can have their position on that. What I'm talking about is a specific family that's using the wealth that lives on the backs of slavery, of transatlantic slavery. And I don't think we can deal with that, because whether it be a West African, Nigerian, or this monarchy, there's specific families that still live on the direct wealth of that and still believe in the ideology of us being slaves. This family created slavery. She married into this family. A bunch of black women, some black men, but mostly black women, got up at 6 a.m. and watched this spectacle. Oprah went and supported it. It made no sense. But I just want to say, like, I don't have no remorse for her. She getting what she deserves. So in the television interview on Sunday night, the Duke of Sussex also acknowledged a rift with his brother William. So there's a rift going on, and Meghan Markle's at the crux of it. But we got to understand that this family created American slavery as we know it, and as a result, they hold like responsibility for that. I don't understand how you marry that family. I don't know no other group that would celebrate that. I don't know no other group that actually wouldn't acknowledge that. I don't know how she's still in our space. You look at this woman, it's not a problem that her daddy was white. She's not anchored in blackness. See, I believe if it's going to be an interracial relationship, it has to be black-led, meaning are black people actually making that relationship rooted in reading Dr. King's books, reading Stokely Carmichael, being aware of the wealth condition. That's the question. This is a woman who comes out of something different to me. She lived with the white father. She went to a white sorority. This is basically a black woman trafficking on whiteness. And then essentially now black people are trying to feel themselves through her as she married into and targeted because she targeted marrying this man into the royal family. Well, this is what you get. It's a personal thing that you get. This is the family. You know, Queen Elizabeth I invested in the early voyages of John Hawkins, loaned him her armed 700-ton ship, Jesus of Lubbock, as a slave vessel, made money from the investment, and knighted Hawkins in his efforts. When Queen Elizabeth II was asked about paying reparations, she responded, under the statute of the International Civil Court Acts of Enslavement committed today to do constitute crimes against humanity, but the historic slave trade was not a crime against humanity, or contrary to international law at the time when UK government condoned it. Basically, we're not going to pay reparations, and we created slavery. We don't care. This is the family. So now Meghan Markle got to live in that family. I don't understand what people are doing trying to connect her. She don't represent us. She just made decisions adverse to us. That's my feeling on it. I said it back then that she's going to have a hard time. The time is here now. You got to run around, take the pictures. Now take the cost. That's my feeling on it. Let's get in the chat. The girl identifies as white. Queen Riri. The girl identifies as white. Right? Russians have to make a choice. She chose white. Shout out. Prince Muslima. Yes, trafficking on whiteness. Marvin Keelam. Megan know that she was marrying into, and if she didn't, she should have did her Black history research. That's where we at. Globally, Black Americans are going to have to get much more nuanced, much more dynamic, and much more honest about who they are personally. And we're going to have to be honest about who they are as they go into the markets. LeBron James is a commercial product. He's a Nike shoe salesman that play basketball. Going into the Chinese market where they make the cheap shoes. That's what he is. Meghan Markle is a black woman with a white father and essentially raised by the white father that chose whiteness throughout her whole life and essentially now married into the royal family that created the transatlantic slave trade that basically led to our slavery. That's what she is. How do you deal with that in context of being aware and honest about when they deal with the impact and cost of who they are? They are going to deal with things that LeBron James is dealing with when the Chinese boycott you, and things like Meghan Markle deals with when basically you have to be called racist epithets. It's not right, but it's real. I just wanted to come to you today and have a discussion. Please share this. Let's get it going. Tone Talks out.